Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is still your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. In 2012, for the 40th anniversary of the Royal Oak, Audemars Piguet launched this. This is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph Leo Messi, a tribute to the famous footballer as well as Audemars Piguet's four-decade classic. At the time, the Royal Oak celebrating 4 times 10 years, and this 400-piece tantalum and rose gold limited edition was a way of celebrating both their ambassador and their anniversary. So we are looking at 400 pieces with a combination of blue-grade tantalum and rose gold, a combo that takes us back to 1980s Audemars Piguet, and something that used to be a routine offering on the Royal Oaks, generally the Royal Oak mid-sizes of the time. This is full-size, though. 2012 marked the arrival of 41mm Royal Oaks, and that's what we've got right here. So 41 in diameter, 10.9 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. If we're just talking about the case, it's 52 millimeters across the wrist, but we've got these tantalum plots or intermediate links, and they are 56.5 millimeters across the wrist, but you can also see there's a little bit of a stiffness to the strap. It won't pull down vertically out of the lugs, so you got to think of this as more of almost a 43 or a 45 millimeter round watch to get a sense of how it wears. And you can see that on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. Now, the angling of the lugs does help, but I'm still going to advise that you not wear this on a wrist smaller than mine. It's nice and thin. It will fit underneath the cuff. As a dress Royal Oak, it works really nicely. But just because it is so broad, and you can see that from the top, especially with the stiffness of the strap and those intermediate links, 16 centimeters circumference or larger. The strap is beautiful. The tantalum has a blue-gray tone. The dial is described as anthracite, and I think you could say the same of the strap. Very high-grade, bolstered or stuffed to give it volume. You can see it's fixed to case using screws and bars, something for which I will always laud Audemars Piguet, using screws and bars. That is the slightly more expensive but also more secure way to join a strap or a bracelet to a case. Less chance of a pop-out like you'll find with spring bars, and yes, I have seen spring bar failures. Taking a look at the strap, most AP Royal Oak straps are designed to integrate with the case and the taper of the lugs in a way that echoes the bracelet design that was fully integrated when Gerald Genta penned that first Royal Oak in 1972. So we have the same sort of all-of-a-piece look where everything flows together. The strap is large, symmetrical, rectangular scale gator, which is an exceptionally high-grade and expensive cut of the beast. You can see that it's a semi-gloss with a monotone stitch, a folded edge, and then on the bottom you can see it's calfskin. Audemars Piguet factory strap, brand new, no crimping, no gouging, combined with a single fold Audemars Piguet logo style clasp. Taking a look at the case, classical Royal Oak, and this one's in outstanding condition. This is a watch that looks to have been professionally, sparely, most likely never refinished, because the sharpness of the lug bevels, that in particular, speaks to a level of original material, an intact factory finish that is very difficult to replicate after refinishing. So this watch is in outstanding condition. From a case condition standpoint, I give it 10 out of 10. You can see that there's a panoply of polish and satin. We have both creases and curves on bezel and case, a lovely expanding bevel that flares over the lug hoods, the character lines of the bezel continuing into the mid-case and the case back, recesses for the bolts, or the screws, I should say, that hold the strap on. Satination on tantalum. It's just about impossible to convincingly polish tantalum. It gets done from time to time, but it's not the majority treatment lavished on this very difficult to finish material. As with most Royal Oaks, the bezel gasket is a slightly expressed styling element of the watch. It's not an overpowering stacked feature the way it is in an offshore, but it's definitely there and deliberately there. We have micro bevels on the flanks of the crown guards. You can see that the screw-down crown, and here it is a screw-down crown, it has a hexagonal form which matches the hexagonal white gold bolts that sit in the bezel. And you can see, for example, that the bolts are still recessed below the bezel. That's what you want to see on a fresh Audemars Piguet Royal Oak or offshore bezel. Also important to note, we've got a couple of facets to this bezel. So we've got the satin vertical facet, then we have a sloped facet. And this is where a conventional Royal Oak, this sloped facet, this would be polished. Everything here is matte. There's very little polish. The white gold bolts are polished. But then atop the bezel, satin that runs from top to bottom. We have screw-down chronograph pushers, screw-down crown, 50-meter water resistance. If you put this on a water-resistant strap, it is safe for surface swimming. Now, taking a look at this dial, the first thing you'll note is that there's no hobnail. It's not one of the traditional pantograph cut tapisserie dials. The tapisserie is here banished for a lovely slate matte sheen that gives this watch a unique aesthetic, but also matches the finish externally. That has very few polished elements. Now we've got sunken sub-registers, each with a rose gold chaptering, satin finished silver metallic scale, and then inboard they have anthracite centers. We have rose gold hands, rose gold indices, rose gold logo, all applique, and if you look, you can see the inner bezel is mirror polished, which does nice things reflecting the dial, but also reflecting light back onto these surfaces. We'll do a lume shot so you have a good sense of how the watch glows. Actually pretty well, to be perfectly honest. A couple of other things to note here. We have a Frederic Piguet 1185 movement doing business as Audemars Piguet 2385, which means we have a nice crisp and positive feeling column wheel function selector. And then watch the seconds hand as I start the watch. There's no jump or stagger because a vertical clutch is seamless in its engagement. It also allows you to run the chrono full time without additional wear and tear to the watch. Now, AP did the date wheel right in this case. I would say the one oversight is that the font used is not the same font used elsewhere on the dial. So for example, look at the 4 in 45, and now look at that 4. It's not the same font. Audemars Piguet would continue doing this broadly on many watches for many years. There is a quick set for the date, and now to AP's credit, you can see that they nicely faceted the date window, so it's not a sheer vertical cut through the dial. It has a little bit of a step down to the disc. But I do like that they faceted the date window and they used a disc that is the same color as the dial. Okay, why use rose gold for the hands and indices other than the fact that it's very pretty? Well, it doesn't tarnish or oxidize with time, so gold features on a dial are always upscale signatures of a well-made luxury watch. Now, turning things over, you'll note there's not a whole lot to see on the back. Leo Messi H series. Also nice to know that this is a 2012 watch and it was high H series, so you can roughly correspond high H serials to 2012 for those of you who like to track AP serial numbers. 290 of 400. You can see the reverse of the case has circular satin finish, then there's sort of a blasted center with polished letters. We have the additional corresponding fittings, the dial side bolts. These are also in white gold. You can see it's a warmer tone than steel. Having a gold case back, a gold case, a tantalum bezel, it feels heavier than a conventional 41mm watch, and I enjoy that. The movement, unidirectional winding, and with a 40-hour power reserve, it has a 3 hertz beat rate. It does have quick set. It doesn't have hacking. But if you want to use your chrono seconds hand as a constant seconds hand, what you can do is you can actually stop the chrono, reset it, and then start it to correspond with the start of a synchronized minute and effectively treat that like a 0 reset. Now, it's 5-position adjusted, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. Pivots on 37 joules. It is a unidirectional winder. So while the movement dates back to the 80s, unidirectional winding is more modern, more efficient, more commonly used on watches today. It's also a beautifully thin integrated automatic chrono that's only 5.5 millimeters thick, which is deeply impressive. And it is nicely finished. After all, this is effectively a Blancpain movement, and the beveling, the stripes, the engine turning, all of these little details and the polishing of the screws, it really is quite pleasing, even though you can't see it. It is a movement worthy of AP, the Royal Oak, and Messi. If you love this watch, reach out to me. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.